Morning, everyone. Austin here at Peace of Zion, reminding you that you are a miracle and that you have a purpose. So this morning I come to you with a heavy heart, having just recently had a dear friend of mine who has passed from this life into the next. And I've learned some things over the years in transitioning from this mortal life into the next life, and about relationships that has really helped me through these phases that I want to share with you this morning. That's why my whole intent of why I'm here, what I'm talking, is to help you who are grieving, who have had loved ones who have passed, to hopefully have some hope or to have some tools to help you look at this transition in a way that can be healing, in a way that can bring hope and can bring peace to your troubled heart at this moment. I've had several people in my life pass on, but none more close than this dear friend of mine who recently passed. This is a friend that I mentored, someone who opened up their deepest, darkest spaces to me, where they were most vulnerable. And I was able to be a support to this person during that time. This is a person who became a dear friend, and I was able to open up to him. And he was in many ways able to mentor me and to guide me and to be a sounding board for me and to help me move forward. We were able to have lots of deep conversations where we talked about the purpose of life. We talked about life after this life. We talked about energy, spirituality, and a lot of those deep conversations that you don't just have with superficial relationships with people who you barely know. This is someone who I feel intimately knew me, and I was able to know him and was blessed to know him in many ways. And so this is the closest person that I've ever had to me that is passed. I've had grandparents, I've had teachers, I've had friends, other friends, I've had students who I've worked with and worked for who have passed. I've had nieces, I've had cousins, I've had uncles. So I'm familiar with death, but this definitely was the closest. And this is one that when I heard the news really shocked me, because this is someone that I was just barely talking with and having conversations with in the last couple days. And was looking forward to seeing this person again here in just a couple days, and so it's definitely one that hit more close than any of the others to me. And so what I want to share with you here is, first off, relationships are eternal. Relationships are eternal. Just because a person dies, their physical body dies, does not mean that you cannot continue your relationship with them. That person, we are eternal beings. Our energy is eternal. They've actually done studies on bodies who, as soon as a person passes, they weigh the person, and there is a weight difference. So as soon as a person passes and dies and moves on to the next world, their physical body, it weighs less than when the person was there. So our spirit has some mass to it. There is some weight to our spirits. And so our spirits continue on living. Our energy continues to live. And so for those people that you have a relationship with that pass, you can continue to have a relationship with them. One of my mentors, so this was back 7 years ago, a little over 7 years ago, I had a mentor and I started going through this journey, and he had us write down a list of relationships that we could heal. And so he said, what are some relationships? What are the names that come to mind? Just write them down and then start working on them, starting at the top of the list and go down. So the top of the list for me was my grandfather Soderquist. He had passed away back in 2006, and I wasn't there for his funeral. I hadn't seen him, and this is now 2014. So it's like 8 years after he died, and he's on the top of my list as a relationship for me to heal. And when he passed, honestly, I didn't really care. It's not one that really was sad or hurtful to me when he passed, because he had kind of distanced himself from the family. He divorced my grandma and then got remarried and divorced again and then moved on. And so the older I got, the less I saw him. And my perception of him was he was this mean man that left my grandma, and I had some hurt and some anger towards him for how he left my grandma, because I see my grandma as an amazing person. I love my grandma. And so for someone to leave her, like, why would he leave her? You know, it didn't make sense to me. And so I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of hurt towards him that was painful, that I was just holding in. And so when he died, I was like, okay. I couldn't go to his funeral. I was living in Germany at the time, and it didn't bother me. So here we are 8 years later after he's already died, and my mentor has me write down on the list of relationships I need to heal, and he's at the top of the list. So I was like, okay, so how do we do this? And my mentor said, okay, what you need to do is you need to have a conversation with this person. You need to finish the conversation. So you need to invite their highest and best self into the room with you, the car with you, wherever you're at. Go someplace where you can be alone and invite the highest and best self of that person to come in and talk with you and ask permission. Say, can I share with you the feelings and thoughts on my heart? So I was like, oh, okay. So I did that. So I was working in a small town outside of Kanab, Utah at the time, but I was living in St. George. So when I would drive home, I had an hour and a half commute. So one night while I'm driving home, it's 11:30, midnight, and I'm driving alone, so I invite him into the passenger seat of my car. And I say, hey, Grandpa, can I just share with you how I feel? And I felt this yes inside, and so I just started dumping. I said, I'm so hurt on how you left Grandma. Why would you do such a thing? I'm so angry. I wasn't even sad that I couldn't be at your funeral because of this anger that I'm holding. And I just dumped it all out and shared it all. I said everything that was in my heart, everything that was in my mind, and let it all out. Let the emotion, and I allowed myself to yell, to whatever I needed to do, let it out, and then talked with him. And then I did the forgiveness piece. I said, will you please forgive me for holding in this negative energy? Will you forgive me for holding on to this for so long, for having this anger towards you? I said to my higher power, God, will you please forgive me for holding this in? And then to Austin, myself, I said, Austin, will you please forgive me for holding this in for this long? Because anytime we hold on to emotion, it does have an impact on us. And so I said, Austin, will you forgive me? So I forgave myself. I received forgiveness. I said to my grandfather, I forgive you for these things that you've done. That's because it's led me to this moment, and I've had these opportunities to learn. And so thank you. I express gratitude. Thank you for being my grandpa. Thank you for the things that you've allowed me to learn through you making the choices that you've made. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so that's something that's been very helpful to me. And then I was able to say, I love you. And I'll tell you this, my relationship with my grandfather Soderquist has never been better. Has never been better. He was a very instrumental part in my life with getting my first children's book out, A Maggot's Life. I heard later from my grandma, who still has great love for my grandfather. I never saw her really go through anger or hurt or judgment. She still has kind feelings and thoughts towards my grandfather. So this is my grandmother Soderquist, is an amazing human being, one of my heroes. And I'm so grateful for her in my life and her example. And she told me at one point that my grandfather Soderquist, that he had a book that he wanted to publish, but he never got it published. And so here my grandfather is, he's already died, and yet I feel him very strongly in my life, helping me, urging me to get my book published. And so my grandma said, you know what, maybe because he wasn't able to get his out, he's really urgent, wanting to make sure that you don't follow in his footsteps and go to your grave without having your book published. And so he's helping you to do that. And so here's an example. So one morning, while I was in my room doing my morning prayer meditation, my eyes are closed, I'm kneeling down, and I feel this presence walk into my bedroom. It was so real that I thought it was my wife, Aubriana, walking into the room. And I thought, okay, when I'm done with this meditation, when I'm done with my prayer, I'm going to open my eyes and I'll talk to her. But I'm going to continue to pray and meditate until I'm finished with this. So I finished my meditation. I opened my eyes expecting to see my wife, Aubriana, in the room. When I opened my eyes, nobody's there. No one was in the room. And then my spiritual mind, my spiritual eyes were opened, and I knew that my grandfather Soderquist was standing right in my room by my bed. And in my mind, I hear these words, Austin, before you leave your room this morning, you need to illustrate the whole next page in your book. So I thought, okay. So I sat to my desk and I started to illustrate. And I worked on the whole illustration. And while I was illustrating the book, I would have different thoughts and things come to me saying, well, why don't you change this or add this or do this? And it was a very spiritual experience. And I know my grandfather was involved. So finally, I finished this illustration that morning. And usually, Sethan, at the time, who was like 3 years old, he usually wakes up and comes into my room earlier. But on this particular morning, he did not wake up and come into my room until I had finished that illustration. As soon as I finished that page, the door opened and he walked in. So I almost guarantee that there were some angels and there were other spiritual beings that were helping him to sleep peacefully while I did what I needed to do with the help and coaching of my grandfather Soderquist, who had died 8 years before. So I will tell you this. Your relationship with your loved ones can and do continue. So if you have a loved one who has passed on and you're feeling grief, you're feeling loss, I want to let you know that you haven't lost them. Yes, their physical body's not here with you, but you can talk to them. They can be with you, and in some ways they can be with you more than they could have had they been in their physical body still. And so every time I have a friend or a teacher or a loved one who has passed, I've reached out to them and I've said, hey, God, can I speak to them? I had a teacher, one of my teachers when I was in college, one of my favorite teachers, he died in an accident, a freak accident. And I asked to talk to him. And so I talked with him right after he passed. But one of the students that we had at the school, she passed. And I asked, and she was young. She was like 17, 18 years old. She wasn't very old. And I asked, Heavenly Father, can I please speak to her? I have a message I'd like to share with her. And that night, as I was sleeping, I woke up. And when I woke up, I looked, and on the side of my bed, this student was standing. She was there. And I was allowed to say to her the message that I had to say. And as soon as I shared the message with her, she walked away. So she didn't say anything to me, so it wasn't a back and forth conversation, but I was able to share with her that conversation and she walked away. That's one of the very rare times when I've been able to see someone who has passed. And now here we are today. This morning I'm driving home from dropping my son off to school, and I get this message, and I saw a text message come through, and it said something about, like, remember that whenever someone dies, it's a reminder for us to live. And so I was like, that's kind of a random text to see. And then they're like, and then another text I saw, I said, we are so sad. And so my mom called me, and I was like, what's going on? And so they said, oh, this person has just passed, my dear friend, someone who I feel super close to, someone I love. And so I thought, wow, that was shocking. I did not expect to hear that this morning. But this person, so we're creating Peace of Zion here in Glendale. And he came up a few months ago and was here for one of our messages from nature mindfulness class. And the message he got a very profound message. And then he said he got another urge and another prompting that he received that said when the time is right, that he needs to be here at Peace of Zion and to be a part of it. And so as soon as I heard of his passing, I knew, wow, I guess this is the time. This is the time for him to be a part of Peace of Zion in a way that I did not anticipate. I expected he would physically be a part of helping Peace of Zion to grow and to influence it that way. In some ways now, he is going to be able to be a part of it in a much deeper way than I thought possible. So I thought that was a blessing to be able to have that connection. And he's someone I always told him I feel like his purpose is to be a connector. He's very open. He's really good at making friends. He's really good at helping people feel comfortable. And he's really good at meeting people. And then when he meets people, then when he's in conversations, he says, hey, do you know so-and-so? maybe you should get together with them because they are in alignment with what you're doing. And I've heard this from him multiple times, which is why I said to him, I feel like one of your purposes is to be a connector. And because I have this understanding that relationships continue, that life continues, I'm like, okay, I need to go have a conversation with him this morning. And so I got home from dropping my son off, and then I did this conversation. I said, hey, will you come in? Can I talk to you? And I talked, and I shared my feelings, and I shared my thoughts, and I shared my surprise and hurt that he has passed on. But also my understanding that he's not passed on, if that makes sense, because he's here. He was in the car with me this morning while we were talking. And I talked with him, and I shared with him all these thoughts, and I shared with him all these ideas about, hey, now you get to be a part, and your role as a connector can continue. So please go out and, help me, because I said, you can probably see me more now than you could while you were here. You can see some of my blocks, some of my limiting beliefs, some of the darkness that's in me. And now you can be my mentor. You can help me to break through these things so that we can bring Peace of Zion into fruition in a big way. And so I said, please be my mentor. Please coach me. Please guide me as we build Peace of Zion. And please continue your role as a connector. Go out and find people that I can serve. Help me to connect with them so that we can create this Peace of Zion and bring peace to the world in this time where so many people are hurting, where there's so much fear. It's definitely needed. So I had this conversation with him, and I told him, I'm going to reach out to your mom, because we had some moments recently. And I also told them, whoever's going to be going through your stuff, please have them, if they help them to find the message that you received from the Message from Nature, because I would like to have that. And so whoever's going through your stuff, please help them to know and inspire them to get that to me, because I would love to have that. I've been encouraging him to post it and to share his story, but he had never done that. So I want to be able to share that message with you and with everyone as I get that. But super, super amazing. Then I said to him, is there anything that you want to share with me? And he just said, you know what, thank you for being in tune. Thank you for having this awareness that we can continue to talk, because it's comforting to know that I can talk to you and that I'm still connected. So thank you for being aware. And yeah, it's crazy. It's definitely a shock. And so I received a message, talked with him, and said, hey, okay, we'll stay in touch. We're going to talk, because I know I can reach out to him. I know I can talk to him at any time. But at this time, he's going around to his family, his friends that are hurting and in pain, and he's comforting them and helping them through this. He's there. He's real. He's alive. Your loved ones are real. They're alive. They continue. And so I invite you to open yourself up to just talk. So if there's someone that you feel like maybe you haven't been able to say everything you needed to say. So one of my friends here says, I needed this so much. I lost my best friend last week. Thank you for opening my heart and eyes. And so I say to you, have this conversation with your friend. Because if there's anything that you feel like you didn't get to say, anything you feel like you didn't get to share with her or him, whoever your friend is, invite them in, have this conversation, share everything. You need to be able to release that and share that. And then open yourself up. As soon as you're done sharing and talking to them, then say, hey, is there anything for me? And listen and trust whatever thoughts come into your mind. And you can write them down. Maybe, some people will say to me like, Austin, it's just in my own head. I'm like, okay, well, was it helpful? Well, like, yeah. Okay, well, then doesn't matter. It's really about, is it helpful? What are the fruits of our behaviors? Does it lead to more happiness, more health, more connection? Then that's probably something that's good. If it leads to pain, frustration, hurt, that's probably something we want to avoid. So look at the fruits of our behaviors. What are the outcomes? If it's something that's positive, by all means, keep doing it, right? So remember that you are a miracle. You do have a purpose. Life continues. Relationships are eternal. That's the most important thing in this life, is our relationships. And so let's see people for who they truly are. Let's see the greatness in each other, because it's so easy to get frustrated with someone and to just say, you know what, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And we see the blocks, we see the sharp edges, and we don't see the person. So my invitation to you today is a couple of them. First off, if you have anyone that's passed that you feel like you still feel loss, you feel grief, have a conversation with them. Open yourself up to go and have a conversation with them. You can. You can. So have that conversation. That's the first one. And then the second one is don't take life for granted. As you look at the relationships that you have with you today, see them for who they truly are. See them as people. See if you can respond in love. Because there's so much division happening in the world and in our country today between all this, like the vaxxed and the unvaxxed, the masked, the unmasked, the black, the white, the women, the men, like all of these divisions. It's totally unnecessary. We are human beings. We are all human beings, and we are all of value. And so if we can see people for people, we say, no, what, this person is a miracle. This person has a purpose. How can I see past the walls, the blocks, the beliefs, and see them for who they truly are and have a connection? Because I'll tell you this, if you're trying to influence people to think the way you think, there's no better way to connect with people than through connection, being vulnerable, actually connecting with people and seeking to understand. Because if you're just like, we just have our ideas and we're like, think like me, think like me, think like me, think like me, it just creates tension and conflict and doesn't help. But if people know that you care about them, one of my favorite quotes is, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So people need to first know that you care about them, that you have love towards them. And then as we do, we can open up, we can have vulnerable conversations because we know that we're safe. We're safe. And so I invite you to see people for people, see the greatness in them today, and to express love in all areas of your life. There's enough hurt, there's enough fear, there's enough anger and hatred in the world today. Let's be part of the solution. Let's be part of the love and leave a legacy of love. You do matter. You are a miracle. You have a purpose. Thanks for tuning in. If this was helpful to you, please share it with others who are in a hurting stage or who are having grief, because we can heal. We can stay connected to our loved ones. I know that to be true. I've experienced it multiple times in my life, and I share this with you as a way to hopefully help comfort you, to help bring you some hope, and for you to be able to have these experiences yourself. So thanks for tuning in. Remember, you're a miracle. You have a purpose. Message me if you have any questions or need anything else. Other than that, I look forward to talking to you again soon.